Sacajawea, Guide to Lewis and Clark, by Della Rowland, book report by Avery Gustin. I was born in 1788 and grew up near the Rocky Mountains that is today known as the state of Idaho. My real name is Hoochoo, meaning little bird. I was part of the Shoshone tribe where my father was the chief. My tribe lived in teepees and moved around during the year to gather food and hunt bison. When I was around 12 years old, my tribe was attacked by another tribe called the Military. I was captured and taken as a slave. They took me all the way back to where they lived in the middle of what today is known as North Dakota. Life with the Military was different than with the Shoshone. The Military didn't move around as much and grew crops such as squash, corn, and beans. I worked in the fields. When I was still just a young teenager, the Military sold me to a man named Toussaint Charbonneau, and he became my husband. I soon became pregnant with my first child. In 1804, an expedition led by Captains Meriwether Lewis and William Clark arrived near to where I lived. They had been sent by President Thomas Jefferson to explore the lands to the west. Lewis and Clark were looking for guides to help them through the land to the west. They hired Charbonneau and asked him to bring me along so I could help interpret when they reached the Shoshone so that the Indians didn't think we were a war tribe. In April of 1805, the expedition headed out. I had given birth to a son that winter named Jean-Baptiste, but everyone called him Pompey, meaning little chief. I brought him along, carrying him in a cradle board tied to my back. He was only 2 months old when they left. I was able to help out with the expedition. I showed the men how to collect edible roots and other plants along the way. I also helped to save some important supplies and documents when our boat was capsized in the river. The men were impressed with my quick action and named the river after me. Late that summer, the expedition reached the land of the Shoshone. Lewis and Clark met with the local chief to trade for horses. They brought me to interpret for them. Much to my surprise, the chief was my brother. I was so happy to be home and see my brother again. My brother agreed to trade for horses. He even provided them with a guide who helped them through the Rocky Mountains. I soon learned that my brother and I were all that was left in our family. I continued on the journey. It wasn't easy. We were often cold and hungry. I had to carry and feed a baby, and we all got sick with a fever. Having me on the trip also helped keep peace with the Native Americans. When they saw a woman and a child with the group, they knew it wasn't a war party. The expedition finally reached the Pacific Ocean in November of 1805. We were amazed at the sight of the ocean. It was the first time I had ever seen the ocean. I was especially amazed at the size of the remains of a beached whale on the shore. We stayed near the ocean for the winter before beginning the journey home. It took us most of the next spring and summer to return home. Not much is known of my life after this. Charbonneau continued to be an interpreter and fur trader. He was last heard of in 1839, when he was about 80 years old. Clark was so attached to Jean-Baptiste, also known as Pompey, that he offered $500 to raise and educate him. I didn't want to send Pompey with Clark because he was still so young. A year later, I took Pompey to Clark and he raised and educated him. Some historians think I died just a few years later of a fever on December 20th, 1812. Others say that I returned home to the Shoshone and lived for another 70 years and died on April 9th, 1884. Some interesting facts about me. Captain Clark nicknamed me Janie and my son Jean-Baptiste Pompey. A few years after the expedition, I gave birth to a daughter named Lisette.